In the vast reaches of space, something had changed. No one knew exactly when it had happened, but it was clear to all who lived among the stars. A strange, invisible force known as the silent wave had swept across the galaxy, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Communication that had once flowed freely between planets and star systems had stopped. There were no more transmissions from the advanced civilizations that dotted the cosmos. No more messages, no more signals, not even whispers from the farthest reaches of space. It was as if the galaxy had gone to sleep. At first, no one realized the true impact of this silence. The larger civilizations, with their vast fleets and advanced technologies, assumed the silence was temporary, a malfunction, a glitch in their communication networks. But days turned to weeks, and then weeks turned to months. Still, nothing. Entire fleets, once capable of moving across vast distances in mere hours, now sat idle, unable to send or receive any messages. The quiet was unnerving. It was not just the absence of sound, it was the absence of life. No one knew why the galaxy had fallen silent. It was as if an invisible hand had pressed pause on the universe itself. The councils of the galactic species met in urgent discussions, but the same conclusion was reached each time. There was nothing they could do. The silent wave was beyond their understanding, and their technology was no match for whatever force had caused it. On Earth, a small and once forgotten world on the edge of the galaxy, the news of the silence was met with a mix of disbelief and fear. Humanity, with its relatively young civilization and simple technologies, had never been a major player in galactic politics. For centuries, they had looked up to the stars, watching as other species explored the far reaches of space, leaving Earth behind in their wake. But now, with the galaxy at a standstill, humanity's voice, their very existence, seemed to be slipping into the background. The human leaders, gathered in their global council, were uncertain of what to do. They had always been a resourceful species, known for their ability to adapt and survive. But even they could not deny the truth. The galaxy was silent, and there seemed to be no hope of breaking the silence. "Perhaps we should focus inward," suggested President Larkin, a calm and thoughtful leader. "Our world is still alive, still thriving. Maybe it's time we turn our attention to improving life here, instead of worrying about the stars." But not everyone agreed. Some, like the young scientist Dr. Sarah Bennett, believed that the silence was not the end, but the beginning of something new. "We can't just sit here," she argued. "Humanity has always found a way to rise when faced with challenges. The stars may be silent, but that doesn't mean we can't find a way to speak again." Her words stirred something deep within the council. Earth had been on the verge of a new era in space exploration when the silence had struck. They had just begun to build their first interstellar ships, capable of reaching distant planets. Now, those ships sat empty, their crews lost to the silence that spread like a thick fog. As the days passed, small groups of scientists and engineers on Earth began to examine the silent wave. They studied it, looking for any clue that might explain what had happened. They realized that while the silent wave had blocked all forms of communication, it had not destroyed the ability to think or act. The human brain, with its remarkable capacity for creativity and problem-solving, had not been affected by the wave. Humans could still think, still plan, still dream. It was this discovery that sparked a flicker of hope. The human mind, it seemed, was immune to the silence. But the question remained, could they somehow find a way to communicate again, to break through the wave and reach out to the galaxy? In hidden laboratories and quiet corners of Earth, work began on a solution. Engineers began crafting new methods of communication, devices that could function outside the constraints of the silent wave. It was slow, frustrating work, and no one knew if they would succeed. But one thing became clear. Humanity was not ready to give up just yet. And so, as the galaxy lay still, Earth began to awaken. There were no grand announcements, no loud proclamations, just a quiet, steady determination to find a way through the silence. Because humanity had faced worse before. They had faced impossible odds, and each time they had come through. And as the stars lay silent in the vast expanse of space, humanity quietly prepared to make its voice heard once again. As the galaxy remained silent, Earth scientists refused to give in to despair. Dr. Sarah Bennett, the young scientist who had spoken so passionately at the council meeting, was one of the first to take action. She gathered a team of engineers, physicists, and researchers, all united by the belief that humanity could still find a way to communicate with the stars. It wasn't going to be easy. The silent wave had crushed the communication systems of even the most advanced civilizations. But they believed in one thing. If anyone could outsmart the silence, it was humankind. Sarah and her team worked in secret. The governments of Earth were too busy with their own concerns to fully understand what was happening, and they certainly weren't ready to trust the faint hope that had begun to take root. But Sarah knew the truth. Humanity had an advantage. Unlike the other advanced species, humans had never relied solely on technology. They had always found ways to adapt, to innovate, and to think outside the box. If there was a way to break through the silent wave, it would be found in the human mind. The team began by studying everything they knew about the silent wave. They discovered that it wasn't simply a block on communication. It was an interference with energy itself. The wave disrupted the flow of information, rendering devices and systems useless. But while the wave could stop signals, it couldn't stop thoughts. The human brain could still process information, create ideas, and solve problems. Sarah's first breakthrough came when she designed a small device, a kind of thinking cap, which allowed humans to transfer their thoughts directly into a signal. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. It wasn't a traditional form of communication, but it was a start. The device would send a pulse of thought into the aether, bypassing the silent wave's interference. It was a long shot, but it was the only shot they had. The first test was a failure. The pulse didn't reach far enough to break through the wave. But instead of feeling defeated, Sarah felt a surge of hope. The fact that the device worked at all meant that their theory was correct. It was possible. They just had to find a way to improve it. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's team worked tirelessly, improving the device. They made it smaller, more powerful, and more precise. Each time they tested it, they grew closer to their goal. The device was no longer just a pulse. It was becoming a beacon. They could now send messages that had the potential to travel vast distances, cutting through the silent wave like a ship slicing through calm water. While the scientists worked in their hidden laboratories, the rest of the world had begun to feel the weight of the silence. The markets were quiet, trade routes had stalled, and the once bustling cities were now eerily empty. People were starting to lose hope. They couldn't hear the voices of other worlds, and they couldn't even hear the hum of the machines that had once kept their lives running smoothly. But Sarah and her team never wavered. They knew that if they could send a message, if they could prove that humanity was still alive and still capable of innovation, it might spark something in the other species of the galaxy. The silent wave had silenced them all, but humanity had never been one to bow to silence. The moment came when Sarah stood before the device, her hands shaking slightly with anticipation. They had made the final adjustments. This was their chance. With a deep breath, she pressed the button. A soft hum filled the room as the device powered up, sending a pulse of thought into the void. They waited and waited. Time seemed to stretch on forever as the seconds ticked by. Then suddenly, the machine gave a small flicker of life. The pulse had traveled. It had broken through the silent wave, just barely, but enough to prove that it could be done. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. The message was simple, a single word, a word that held more meaning than any other in the galaxy right now: hope. As the signal faded into the unknown, Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. It wasn't much, but it was enough to spark something inside her. They weren't done yet. They hadn't solved everything, but they had proven that humanity could fight back against the silence. The galaxy might have forgotten them, but they hadn't forgotten the galaxy. The message reached only a small part of the universe, just a distant, empty colony light years away. But it was a sign that humanity had begun to push back against the silence. The other species might have been trapped in their own despair, but humanity, with all its flaws and imperfections, was starting to awaken. And in that awakening, the galaxy might find hope once again. The small message sent by Sarah's team had barely reached the stars, but it was enough to stir something deep in the heart of the galaxy. The simple word, hope, had managed to travel far enough to reach a small colony of Eldrians, a peaceful and highly intelligent species that had once been part of a great alliance of galactic civilizations. They had been one of the first to feel the effects of the silent wave, losing contact with all of their allies and falling into isolation. But they were not the only ones. All across the galaxy, other species had been left in silence, waiting for some sign that life had not disappeared forever. The Eldrians, unlike many others, were not quick to dismiss strange signals. Their society valued curiosity and discovery above all else, and the mysterious pulse they had received from Earth was unlike anything they had experienced before. For months, they had been isolated, with no word from anyone, no answers to their questions. But now, a signal had come through, faint and broken, yet unmistakably clear. Someone, somewhere, was trying to speak. At first, the Eldrians weren't sure what to make of it. Was it a trick, a malfunction in their systems? But after careful analysis, they realized that the signal had come from the direction of Earth, a small, unremarkable planet they had once written off as insignificant. Earth was one of the youngest civilizations in the galaxy, still grappling with its own internal struggles, and had never been a part of the greater galactic community. It had been ignored by the older, more powerful species, and yet here it was, sending out a message. A simple message of hope. The Eldrian Council convened immediately. They were not accustomed to receiving messages from Earth, and they had little knowledge of the human species beyond their occasional scientific exchanges. But the message had sparked something within them. A sense of curiosity, perhaps even admiration. Could Earth really be the answer to the silence that had gripped the galaxy? After much debate, the Eldrians made a bold decision. They would attempt to contact Earth. They knew it was a long shot. Communication was still difficult at best, and the silent wave remained a powerful force. But if anyone could break through the silence, it was humanity. The very message they had sent, hope, was a testament to the unshakable spirit of the human race. For days, the Eldrians worked tirelessly, using their most advanced technology to build a response signal. It was a complex and delicate task, but they were determined. And then, at last, the signal was ready. It was not an easy thing to send, and they knew it could be weeks before they heard anything back, but they had to try. The message was simple, just as humanity's had been. We hear you. We are not alone. It was a message that carried not only the Eldrians' curiosity, but also their hope. They knew that by reaching out, they were sending a message of solidarity, a message that, despite the overwhelming silence, there was still life, still the potential for something greater. As the signal was sent, the Eldrians waited, their collective breath held. The galaxy had been silent for so long, and now, after what seemed like an eternity, the first communication between two species, one ancient, one new, had taken place. The message would take time to reach Earth, but the connection had been made. Back on Earth, Sarah and her team were just beginning to understand the true weight of their discovery. The faint signal they had sent had not only reached the stars, but had also been received by someone who had listened. They were not alone. It was an overwhelming thought. For so long, humanity had been on the fringes of the galaxy, overlooked by the great civilizations that had shaped the galaxy's history. But now, for the first time, they had made contact with another species, and not just any species, an advanced, intelligent species that had seen the same silence and felt the same fear. The team gathered in the lab, anxiously awaiting the results of their own transmissions. The silence had felt like a crushing weight for so long, but now, with the Eldrian's message, there was hope once again. Humanity's efforts had not been in vain. They had been heard. Sarah watched as the data came in, and her heart skipped a beat. There on the screen was a response, a message from the Eldrians. She couldn't believe it. It was real. The response was simple but profound, echoing the same message humanity had sent to the stars. "We hear you. We are not alone." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she realized the magnitude of what had just happened. Earth, once isolated and forgotten, was now part of something greater. There was hope in the stars, and humanity had helped rekindle it. The journey was just beginning. The galaxy had been quiet for too long, but now it was waking up. The silent wave might have silenced the stars, but humanity had found its voice again. And with the Eldrians by their side, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The message from the Eldrians had reached Earth like a beacon of hope. The message, "We hear you, we are not alone," sent ripples through the minds of humans across the planet. It was more than just a reply. It was proof that the galaxy had not completely turned its back on them. The silent wave that had isolated civilizations, leaving them adrift in a vast, dark silence, was not an unbreakable barrier after all. Yet, while Earth celebrated this small victory, the response from the Eldrians stirred a much larger question across the galaxy. What would happen next? The galaxy's larger civilizations, long accustomed to a status of dominance, were not so quick to embrace the idea that Earth could be part of the solution to the silence that had gripped them all. The Galactic Consortium, an alliance of the most advanced civilizations, gathered for an emergency session. For centuries, they had kept the peace between species, their power rooted in the unity of the most intelligent, technologically advanced beings in the galaxy. The silent wave, however, had tested that unity in ways no one had anticipated. The leaders of the consortium were old, wise, and cautious, but even they could not ignore the message sent by the Eldrians. The galaxy had been isolated for far too long, and the silent wave still held a grip on communication. Many civilizations, including the peaceful Eldrians, had been forced to abandon their diplomatic efforts, unsure if they would ever again hear the voices of their allies. Yet now, it seemed Earth had managed to break the silence, a species that had never been a significant player in galactic affairs. "I still don't believe it," said Tholer, the wise leader of the Verishi, a species known for their immense knowledge of technology. His voice, calm yet firm, echoed through the chamber. "A species like Earth, who has only recently mastered interstellar travel, has somehow managed to communicate across the void. It's beyond improbable." "I agree," added Shyla, the leader of the Scifi. "The silent wave is not just a force. It is a tool, and it was created for a reason. If Earth can break through it, then there are dangers we have yet to understand." The council chamber was filled with murmurs as these leaders debated. Some, like Thedler and Shyla, were doubtful of humanity's capabilities, seeing their actions as a fluke or a temporary disruption. The more conservative members of the council feared that the sudden appearance of a species like Earth could be a threat, an unpredictable factor in an otherwise balanced galaxy. But there were others who saw potential in the human race. A few members of the council, notably Doriak, a representative of the Gordons, a species known for their fierce independence, stood up to speak. "The silent wave is not something we fully understand," Doriak began, "and yet, here we are, arguing over the possibility of Earth's involvement. What if they have the answer we've been searching for? If their signal reached us, we should consider the possibility that they could be the key to unlocking the silence. We cannot simply dismiss them." His words caused a shift in the room. There were those among the leaders who still believed in unity, who believed that if they could work together, they might find a solution to the silence. The possibility of Earth becoming part of the effort to rebuild connections across the stars brought a glimmer of hope that had been missing for so long. But the debate was far from over. And if they can't help? Thaler asked, his voice skeptical. If we let them in, and they fail, what then? How many more months, even years, will we lose while they experiment? We cannot wait forever, Doriak replied, unwavering. The silence is taking its toll on all of us. We cannot afford to remain divided, nor can we afford to keep ignoring potential allies. The chamber grew quiet, the weight of Doriak's words settling over the room. No one could deny the truth. Time was running out. The galaxy had been silent for too long. Lives, entire civilizations, had begun to wither in the isolation. In the end, the Council decided to take action, but instead of an immediate agreement, they voted to send a team of representatives to Earth, those who would work directly with humanity's scientists and leaders to understand the technology behind their breakthrough. They would share knowledge and collaborate, cautiously, while keeping a watchful eye on how Earth responded to the growing challenges. The decision was met with mixed reactions. Some saw it as a necessary step, an opportunity to bring about change and potentially heal the galaxy. Others, like Thaler and Shyla, felt it was a risk they couldn't afford to take. But the majority voted in favor of cooperation. And so, the Galactic Consortium had made its first tentative step towards reuniting the galaxy. Back on Earth, Sarah Bennett and her team were overwhelmed by the news. The Eldrian's message had brought them a glimpse of hope, but the confirmation that the galaxy's most powerful civilizations had decided to engage with humanity was a leap into the unknown. Earth was being pulled into the center of something much bigger than they had ever imagined. As Sarah stood before her team, she could feel the weight of what had just happened. Humanity was no longer a bystander in the grand story of the galaxy. They had a chance to become a part of the solution, to work alongside species who had once considered them insignificant. The road ahead was uncertain, but the message from the galaxy was clear. Humanity had a voice, and now they were ready to make it heard. The days following the Galactic Consortium's decision were filled with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. Earth, once a quiet, distant planet, was now at the center of an unprecedented opportunity. A team of the galaxy's brightest minds, from species that had spent centuries exploring the stars, would soon be arriving on Earth. They came not only to learn from humanity's breakthrough, but to see if this young species could truly hold the key to overcoming the silent wave. Sarah Bennett, along with her team, stood in awe as they watched the arrival of the first interstellar delegation. The sleek ships, each representing different species from across the galaxy, descended toward Earth's surface. They hovered above the spaceports, casting long shadows as they landed with a gentle hum. There were no grand celebrations, no parades, just a quiet, focused anticipation. The task ahead was monumental. These visitors were here not just to learn but to collaborate, and for Earth, it was their chance to prove they could contribute to something much larger than themselves. The first to exit the ships were the Eldrians, the peaceful species that had been the first to respond to Earth's signal. Their tall, graceful forms moved with an elegant air of purpose. Their leader, Jenath, stepped forward and addressed the gathered Earth scientists. "We come not just as observers, but as partners," Jenath said in a calm, melodic voice. "We have seen the spark in you, humans. You have brought light into the darkness. Now we are here to help you find a way to banish that darkness once and for all." Sarah's heart raced. For the first time, she could feel that the weight of their work was real. The galaxy had taken notice. This was not just about the silent wave anymore. It was about a shared future. And for humanity, this was an opportunity they could not squander. Alongside the Eldrians, representatives from the Verishi and Gortons followed. The Verishi, known for their advanced understanding of energy and technology, immediately began to set up their equipment, eager to study the human breakthrough. The Gortons, with their strong sense of independence and survival, kept to themselves, observing the others closely. In the following days, the teams worked together in a specially created research facility. The humans shared their technology, the thought-based communication device, and the representatives from other species shared their own expertise. Sarah and her team watched with a sense of wonder as they witnessed technologies far beyond anything Earth had ever known. The Verishi immediately began analyzing the communication device, attempting to refine its design. They believed that, with their understanding of energy systems, they could make the device more efficient, allowing it to send signals over greater distances. But they were careful, always making sure to work in collaboration with the humans. The relationship between species was still new, and trust had to be built slowly. Meanwhile, the Gortons, who were more cautious and practical, insisted on focusing on understanding the silent wave itself. They believed that breaking through the wave was only part of the solution. To truly restore communication across the galaxy, they would need to understand the nature of the force that had caused the silence in the first place. It's not enough to just send a signal, Doriak, the Gorton representative, said during one of the sessions. We need to understand the silent wave, its origin, its power, its purpose. Only then can we be sure that this silence will never come again. It was a difficult task. The silent wave was unlike anything anyone had encountered before. It wasn't just a simple interference with communication. It seemed to be an intentional, organized force, as if something had created it with a purpose. But no one knew what that purpose was or who or what was behind it. As the days passed, Earth's scientists worked hand in hand with their alien counterparts. Every day brought new discoveries, new challenges, and new questions. There were breakthroughs, of course, but there were also moments of frustration. The silent wave was a formidable opponent, and every time they thought they had made a significant leap, the answers seemed to slip away just out of reach. Still, there was progress. The communication device was being refined, its range expanding. The team was beginning to understand the complex nature of the silent wave. And perhaps most importantly, a bond was forming between the different species. Earth had once been alone in the dark, but now they were part of a greater community. They were no longer outsiders. They were contributors, working together with others who had once seen them as insignificant. Sarah stood by the large window overlooking the facility, her mind swirling with all the possibilities. It had been just a few months since the first pulse had been sent out into the galaxy. Now, here they were, working side by side with species that had once seemed so distant and beyond reach. The road ahead was still uncertain, but the silence that had once enveloped the stars seemed just a little less oppressive now. She felt a quiet pride. Humanity had always been a species of innovation and resilience. They had faced challenges before, but this was different. This wasn't just a battle for survival or a race for progress. This was a fight for the future of the galaxy, and Earth was a part of that future. We're making history, Sarah whispered to herself, watching the teams work in harmony. We're not just finding a way to speak again. We're building something new. And as the sun set over the horizon, casting long shadows across the bustling research facility, Sarah couldn't help but feel that this was only the beginning. The silence might still linger, but for the first time, the stars seemed just a little closer. And humanity, with the help of their new allies, was ready to meet them. Weeks passed, and the collaboration between Earth and the galaxy's representatives continued to grow. What had started as a simple exchange of knowledge was quickly turning into something much more. Humanity, once isolated on a small planet in a distant corner of the galaxy, was now an integral part of a larger effort to understand and overcome the silent wave. The work was slow, but progress was being made. In the research facility, the teams were beginning to see patterns in the silent wave. It wasn't just a random occurrence, as they had once thought. The more they studied the signals, the more they realized that the silent wave was like a massive cosmic barrier, one that didn't just block communication, but actively erased it. Every time they tried to send a signal across the galaxy, it was as if the wave rewrote the data, making it disappear before it could be received. It was a chilling discovery. The silent wave wasn't just a nuisance, it was a force with a purpose. But what that purpose was, no one could yet understand. Sarah Bennett, standing before a large display showing the wave's patterns, frowned. "It's like it's protecting something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what?" Xenath, the Eldrian leader, stood beside her, his long fingers tracing the holographic map. "We have theorized that the wave is more than a simple cosmic phenomenon. It's a form of defense, perhaps even a warning system. We may be dealing with something much older, much more powerful than any of us anticipated. But what could it be protecting?" Sarah asked, still lost in thought. "And why is it affecting everyone?" Xeneth remained silent for a moment. The question was one that had been plaguing him for days. He had seen many things in his long life, but this was different. The silent wave wasn't just a random occurrence. It was part of something larger, something that was still hidden in the depths of the galaxy. "The answer lies out there, beyond the stars," Xeneth said finally. "We will find it, together." It was a hopeful statement, but even Sarah could see the uncertainty in his eyes. The task ahead was enormous, and the stakes were higher than they had ever imagined. They weren't just fighting for the survival of their species anymore. They were fighting for the survival of the entire galaxy. The next few weeks saw even greater cooperation between the species. The Verishi worked tirelessly on refining the communication device, while the Gortons focused on studying the silent wave itself. Together, they managed to uncover more about the wave's structure and its patterns. It seemed to pulse at regular intervals, and they hypothesized that if they could disrupt its flow, they might be able to send signals through it. But there was still one problem. They didn't know what the silent wave was guarding or who, or what, had created it. The more they uncovered, the more questions arose. It was clear that the wave was not a natural phenomenon. It was far too organized for that. And then, one day, they received a breakthrough. A transmission, faint and fractured, came through. It was a signal, weak but unmistakable, coming from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. It was unlike any signal they had encountered before. The data was scrambled, but they managed to make out a few words. "Help. We are trapped. Protectors. Silent." The transmission cut off abruptly. The team was stunned. This was not a random signal. It was a cry for help. The question now was who was sending it, and why were they trapped? The answer to that question, they realized, could be the key to unlocking the silent wave itself. The signal, though faint, had come from a location near the edge of known space, a place that had been marked on maps but never truly explored. It was an area of deep space where no one had dared to venture, where strange phenomena had been reported, but no one had ever returned to provide answers. "We need to go there," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "We need to find out who's sending this message and what they know." The team gathered around, the weight of the decision settling over them. They had already come so far, but this was different. They were no longer just trying to break the silent wave. Now, they were chasing the source of the wave itself. They were about to venture into the unknown, where danger and uncertainty awaited at every turn. Xenath spoke up. "We will help you," he said. "We have the technology and the knowledge to reach that place. We may not know what lies ahead, but we can't ignore the message. It is a cry for help. We cannot let it go unanswered." With that, the team made their decision. They would travel to the edge of known space, to the place where the signal had originated. It was a dangerous journey, and no one knew what they would find. But one thing was clear. They had no choice. The silent wave was more than just a cosmic phenomenon. It was a warning, and it was up to them to uncover the truth. As the team prepared for the journey, Sarah stood at the window once again, looking out at the stars. The galaxy seemed so vast, so full of unknowns. But now, for the first time, she felt a sense of purpose. They were no longer just trying to survive. They were fighting for something bigger, something that could change the future of the entire galaxy. They were going to find the source of the silent wave, and they were going to stop it, together. The stars outside Earth's atmosphere shimmered like countless diamonds in the vastness of space. As Sarah Bennett stood at the command center, looking out over the expanse of the galaxy, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The team's next mission was something beyond anything they had ever imagined. They were about to journey into the unknown, into a place where no one had ever dared to go. The faint transmission they had received from the edge of known space had changed everything. It was a cry for help, a message that had traveled across the galaxy, slipping through the cracks of the silent wave. That message had come from a source they couldn't ignore. Now they were preparing to travel to that distant, uncharted area of space, the place where strange phenomena were rumored to exist. No one knew what awaited them there, but they couldn't afford to turn back. "We're ready," Sarah said, her voice steady. She stood before the crew, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. This wasn't just about breaking the silent wave anymore. This was about saving whoever was trapped at the edge of the galaxy. This was about understanding the true nature of the wave and the threat that it posed. Zenith, the Eldrian leader, stood beside her, his tall figure calm and composed. "This journey will be difficult," he warned. "The region you are heading to is unlike anything we've encountered. Even our advanced technology cannot predict what lies ahead. But I trust you, Sarah. The galaxy trusts you." Sarah nodded, her resolve firm. She had never imagined that humanity would be part of something this important, that they would be leading the way into the unknown. But this was the path they had chosen, and she wasn't going to back down now. The ships that would carry the team into deep space were ready. There were two main vessels, one piloted by humans and the other by their alien allies. The human vessel, named Endurance, was equipped with all the necessary tools to navigate the vast distance and overcome any obstacles they might face. Alongside it was the Eldrian ship, Solara, sleek and designed for long journeys. The Verishi and Gordons had contributed their own expertise to ensure the ships were well prepared for the challenges ahead. As the ships prepared for launch, Sarah took one last look at Earth. It was a fleeting moment of peace before the chaos of the unknown. The Earth, with its green landscapes and vast oceans, had always been a symbol of hope for humanity. Now that hope had expanded beyond their homeworld. They were about to embark on a journey that could reshape the future of the galaxy. Ready for departure came the voice of Commander Elias, the captain of the human vessel. "All systems are online. We're good to go." Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. "Then let's make history," she said, her voice filled with determination. The engines of both ships roared to life, and within moments, they shot into the sky, leaving Earth behind. The vastness of space stretched out before them, an endless sea of stars and mysteries. As they moved further from their home, Sarah couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and fear. They were no longer just a small, insignificant planet. They were part of something much bigger. And whatever happened next, humanity would face it together. Days turned into weeks as the journey to the edge of known space continued. The ships moved silently through the void, their advanced engines pushing them toward their destination. Along the way, the team encountered strange anomalies. Flashes of light that seemed to pulse in the distance, electromagnetic disturbances that caused their sensors to flicker. But none of them stopped. They had a mission to complete, and nothing could deter them now. As they neared the coordinates where the transmission had originated, the atmosphere on both ships grew tense. The stars around them began to dim, and the silent wave grew stronger. It was as if the very fabric of space was pressing in on them, trying to keep them away from their destination. "We're entering the edge of the unknown," Zenith said, his voice calm but filled with a sense of urgency. "This is where the silent wave is most powerful. Be prepared for anything." The team braced themselves as they approached the unknown region. Suddenly, a burst of static filled the communication channels. The faint transmission they had received earlier flickered back to life, louder this time, though still distorted. "Help. Trapped. Protectors. Silent. Please." The voice was faint but unmistakable. It was the same message, but this time, it seemed more urgent. "There!" cried Sarah, pointing to a cluster of stars in the distance. A dark mass loomed ahead, a swirling vortex of energy, pulsing with the same frequency as the silent wave. It was the source. The ships drew closer, and the silence became deafening. The team felt a deep sense of foreboding as they approached the dark mass. Whatever was at the heart of this region, it wasn't just a force of nature, it was something more. As they entered the vortex, the ships were pulled into a different dimension, a place where time and space seemed to bend. The crew could feel the immense pressure of the silent wave around them, its force blocking out all communication. But Sarah and her team weren't afraid. They had come this far, and now they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. For better or worse, they were about to discover the truth behind the silent wave, and the galaxy would never be the same again.